This is lesson 3.6, classify triangles by angles. And hopefully this is a pretty easy one and one that's pretty familiar to each of you. So let's go ahead and get started. So there are 4 ways to classify triangles by their angles. So we'll just go through each of the 4 and add some markings to the triangles and go from there. So the first way to classify a triangle by its angles is a right triangle. So a right triangle is going to have one right angle. And as you know, a right angle is a 90-degree angle. Okay, so it'll look like that. The sides could be, we could have 2 legs that are congruent. We could not. Really all you're looking for to classify a right triangle by its angles is that square corner. Pretty straightforward. The second one is an acute triangle, and an acute triangle is going to have all 3 angles less than 90 degrees. So an acute triangle may look like this. That kind of look like a right angle. So I'm going to say that this one's 89 degrees. And then maybe, I don't know, 30 degrees and let's say 61 degrees. Just an example. So you'll notice that all 3 of those angles are less than 90 degrees. Equiangular. An equiangular triangle is going to have all 3 angles are congruent. Okay, and if we know that every triangle has an interior angle sum of 180 degrees, we can just do 180 divided by 3, and we're going to realize that for a triangle to be equiangular, it's actually going to have 3 60-degree angles. And another fun fact, every equiangular triangle is also equilateral. Always equilateral. Okay, they have to be. If all the angles are the same, then all the sides are going to be the same as well. And then lastly, obtuse. An obtuse triangle is going to have one obtuse angle. Okay, it's not all obtuse angles, it's just one obtuse angle. And obtuse angles are obviously the ones that are greater than 90 degrees. Okay, it would be impossible to have a triangle with a whole bunch of obtuse angles. So we just need the one. So maybe something like this. And I'm going to say this angle down here is like 110 degrees, for example. Okay, these 2 are still going to be acute. But you're going to have that one angle, which is obtuse. All right, so we're just going to fly through a couple examples here. This is a pretty simple concept. So just looking at these numbers here, we're going to classify the triangles. So for the green one, example 1, we have a 20 degree, a 70 degree, and a 90 degree. Those 3 numbers add up to 180, so that's good. And then since we have that 190 degree angle, this would be considered a right triangle. Okay, moving on to the red one, 60, 60, 60. That would be an equiangular. And then lastly, we have a 110, a 20, and a 50. Those guys add up to 180, so that's good. And because of that 110 degree angle, this one is obtuse. And then last example, this one will take a little bit of time to write down, but what we're going to do is draw the triangles that are described, and we're going to use proper geometric markings and numbers where appropriate. So example 4 says to draw a right isosceles triangle. Okay, so a right triangle means it has a 90-degree angle. Isosceles from our last skill means that 2 sides need to be congruent. So we need to make that happen. So we need a right triangle where 2 of the sides are congruent. And it would have to be those 2 sides, the 2 legs. It cannot be the hypotenuse because the hypotenuse is always going to be longer than your legs. So that right there is pretty much the only way to do it. Example 5, an acute equilateral triangle. Well, there's really only one way to draw an equilateral triangle. It would have to have all three sides congruent. And with that, all three angles would also be congruent, and they do happen to all be less than 90 degrees. So there we go, we're done. And then the last one would be an obtuse scalene triangle. So an obtuse and scalene triangle, maybe something like that. So to tell everyone that it's obtuse, let's just fill in an angle measurement. Let's call it, I don't know, 116 degrees. And then scalene means all the sides are different lengths. So let's mark them as such. Alrighty, that is it for that lesson. Go ahead and try out the practice.